Okay. All right, where are we? Through the wormhole we go.
Disabled.
Who said jump?
Waypoint reached.
Where are we? I've never seen that planet in Eve. That's kind of weird. But you may want to turn up the volume.
Autopilot jumping.
Oh, who said jump? Never say jump. It's pretty bad. That's where the hell are we going?
Warp drive active.
No, we're way too close. Pull up, pull up.
The capacitor is empty.
Oh shit! Go to the sun. Go to the sun.
Insufficient power.
Oh, we're going in, folks. We're going in.
Docking request accepted.
That's the weirdest looking station I've ever seen.
Your security status has been lowered.
My security status has been lowered. Great, thanks. All right, well, hello, Vegas. So, wow, here we go. I have 80 slides in about 30 minutes. So that's going to go pretty quick, plus I have some movies. Now I want you to notice something. I did not put any NASA logos or JPL logos on this because this is not going to be like the official NASA JPL presentation. This is a Space Pope presentation. And I may have a few opinions that I have to explain when I get back to work, but I'm gonna present my opinions as a private citizen and try to share some things with you, a little bit of the excitement. And my voice is in armor from last night. There might be pictures on Twitter. I don't know. There are. So last time was really popular. I threw in some Easter eggs and people figured them out. So you might see real pictures with Eve stuff in there. So if you see one, just laugh. Okay, so I want to talk about the solar system and to kind of get an idea of where we are and how the solar system relates to where we are in the universe. Now that's a field called cosmology, and I'd love to stand in front of you and talk about the cosmos because that was inspired to me by Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson. And so when we talk about where are we, the map has changed since you've gone to school. And so hopefully I thought, well, I'm going to include this because there may be some things you don't know. And that's the goal of my presentation. If one person learns one thing that they didn't know before the time they came in, I'm going to go op success. So here we go. So this is the interstellar neighborhood, and I was going to start with this chart, but then I thought, well, this is a pretty good chart, but this is probably a better chart that Eve players can understand. So yeah, I planted a few seeds in a CCP Siegel's brain at the pinball thing, so soon, TM? So who knows what we can, Dotland map, that's an official map, it's pretty good. Oops, I slipped one there. So the next unit from our solar system and the neighborhood region is the Milky Way galaxy. And people say, well, there's no up in space. Well, we do have a coordinate system. So there is an east, west, and a north and a south. So even in Eve, we have the Northern Coalition, and we have the south. And that's not really, that's what we really do, actually, when we map out the galaxy. And our location of our solar system is in this spiral galaxy. And in this spiral galaxy, we have this Fibonacci spiral. Well, I don't know. That's one of my nuns did that for me. So this naturally occurring structure goes from the smallest microorganisms all the way up to a galaxy. And we are in the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way galaxy. And we're on a spur of that arm, which is called the Orion Spur. And so I thought I would share this with you. We all talk about the New Eden cluster, but the cluster is not a star cluster. The cluster is actually a clusters of stars that are in a spiral galaxy. So New Eden would be one of these star clusters. And when I was in Reykjavik, Iceland this year, I sat with Affinity and the Lore Lords, I call them. And we discussed this, and so this is official for the Lore Lord meeting. that we are in an unnamed spiral galaxy, but we call ourselves the New Eden cluster. So those who were just looking for other stuff, I had to throw that in, sorry. So, up success. So every dot on here is the local galactic group. And so each one of those is a galaxy that can have 400 billion stars in it just by itself. So the number of stars is just absolutely incredible. But the New Eden cluster is not in the local group. Then we have, this is kind of old information to me. The next unit up is called the Virgo supercluster. But recently, just about 2 years ago, a bunch of scientists recently did a survey, and we found out that the Virgo supercluster is actually just a part of a larger structure called the Laniakea supercluster. So here's some breaking news from the Amara Certified News Network. And I mean, Scope gets all the credit, but come on, ACN, hello, you know? So the Milky Way galaxy and the Virgo supercluster is part of this megastructure that's out there in the galaxy. And oh yeah, and there's a video there, the YouTube link. Just do a YouTube search for Laniakea, our home supercluster, and it's an amazing video. It gives me chills. I liked it. So there's the Laniakea supercluster. So each of these are superclusters, which are clusters of thousands of galaxies that contain billions of stars in each one. And so New Eden cluster is not even within the superclusters, the local superclusters, because if there's a local supercluster, then there's far superclusters. And lo and behold, this is our best view of the entire universe as it looks right now. It kind of looks like neurons in your brain. Whoa. And so the New Eden cluster could be anywhere in one of those galaxies within that supercluster. So that just kind of gives you an idea where we are right now. So our address is one observable universe in the Laniakea supercluster in the local galactic group of the Milky Way galaxy of the Sagittarius arm and the Orion spur of the interstellar neighborhood, solar system of Earth, Sol 3, North American continent, United States of America, state of Nevada, Clark County, city of Las Vegas, 3667 South Las Vegas Boulevard, Planet Hollywood Hotel and Casino, Ballroom 78. So you now know where you are. So now let's talk about the solar system. So yeah, I don't want to hear it. Jesus Christ, don't mess with Pluto, come on. So this is a really cool program. Oh, by the way, everything I'm about to show you is, I purposely took from the internet, whether it be from NASA sites or whether it be from other people doing YouTube stuff. But this is a site that is really kind of cool, and you can go in just like EVE Online, and you can rotate the planets, and there's check boxes there, and this shows you the relative size of the planets, not the relative distance, because if you do the relative distance, even at that scale, the next planet is like in Los Angeles, and the next one's San Francisco, so the space is so huge. But this is a great educational tool that you can use for your kids or your students. So I took this and I decided to label it. And I could probably end my presentation right here. Because it's like, okay, there's the solar system, done. But no, there's more I gotta tell you about. So right now we have 8 planets. We have 5 dwarf planets. And the number of moons has just grown by a couple of days ago. We found 2 more moons around Uranus. And we just found another moon around Maki Maki. Maki Maki? What the hell is Maki Maki? Okay, so dwarf planets. Pluto was put into a new classification of dwarf planets. And it makes sense because we have 4 rocky planets, we have 4 gaseous planets. And by the way, if someone asks you how many rings are in the solar system, I always get the answer, well, Saturn. No, all 4 gaseous planets have rings around them. Did somebody learn that just now, I hope? Yes, up success, yes. So yeah, all 4 have rings. Now they're difficult to see from Earth, but we can see them when we put a telescope and a star winks out as it passes in front of them. And then the Voyager spacecraft and spacecraft we had look back at the sun and we can really see the rings. And so you can do Google searches on that and see the rings that are there. But the number, I put an asterisk because the number of dwarf planets are about to expand. So yay, Pluto has some more friends in his family. And don't say there's 9 planets, because you have to say, if you're going to stick with the 9 and not the 8, there's 8 planets, there's 5 dwarf planets. But if you don't like that, then you have to say there's 13 planets, because Eris is the troublemaker. Eris is planet 10, and they first found Huayama, and when they found that, they were like, well, it's smaller than Pluto. So it's just another object. But when they found Eris, that's where the trouble began, because Eris is massively larger than Pluto. So it's like, ooh, wait, now we're in trouble because Pluto's this planet, but Eris is this planet in mass. So that was interesting, and that's why the International Astronomical Union decided to come up with this new setting. And 2 of these pictures are real pictures. And the others are artistic drawings because we just haven't been there yet. So hopefully we'll get a chance to go out to some of those awesome worlds. So there's many more, and there's this guy who looks like an Eve player, but he's not. And that's Mike Brown. And hopefully I'm going to have lunch with him real soon because I'm a fanboy. Oh, I mean, I'm going to exchange technical data with him. And so we're going to set up, but yeah, he works at Caltech. So he probably knows Sheldon Cooper, too. And so he carries a list of, it's not an Eve presentation unless you put a spreadsheet up, right? I was sitting here going, why is my brain having a problem with this? So he has a list of the candidate dwarf planets that are coming soon. And sure enough, he just discovered one, and he codenamed it Snow White, because Snow White and the 6 dwarfs. So each planet actually had a code name. Huayama was called Santa because it was discovered right about Christmas time. Maki Maki was called the Easter Bunny because it was discovered right about Easter. Eris was the troublemaker, and so it was called Xena after, well, many of you won't know that show. But now it's called Eris, which is the goddess of discord. So that was an appropriate name for that. So the solar system map has changed too. So let's take a look at that. So asteroid belt 1, we all know where that one is. What I like about Eve players is I can talk in AU, and you guys know what I'm talking about. So when I put this presentation together, I said, I'm going to use AU as the standard because you guys are going to know. So all my maps are now AU based. So yeah, so it's about, notice how crunched in the inner solar system is. 0.4, 0.7, 1, 1.5. When you're flying around in Eve, you know, the planets are a lot farther out. To fly around in that small space, you can see every starship there is that's within that local neighborhood. Jupiter is only 5, AU out, only 5. Saturn is almost double that. So look what's happening. So if you look, it's 1 AU to Earth, but it's about, Mars is 1.5, 2 to the asteroid belt, 5 to Jupiter, double that, almost 10 to Saturn, double that again, it's about 19, less than double, about 30 AU out to Neptune. So it keeps expanding by almost double. And, oh yeah, asteroid 2 and 3 are Trojan asteroids. I'm going to tell you all about those, but they're not really called that in the astronomical community. So that was one of my Easter eggs that might get me in trouble. And so then it goes all the way out to Eris, and Eris is actually out farther. That's the average distance at that one. But then there's the Kuiper asteroid belt, and the Kuiper asteroid belt has so many interesting things out there because that's That's where there's these trans-Neptunian worlds that are out there. It's just amazing. So that's the far outer solar system where the dwarf planets, except Ceres, lives. Ceres is at 2.8. But everything else is out there, and that's where there's probably a couple hundred of them out there waiting to be discovered. So then comes the Oort cloud, and I did the math on that. If you want to take a freighter, you'll have to fly 10 hours and 9 minutes of game time to make it to the Oort cloud. So CCP, I know you're in the room, so I was suggesting maybe you can put the anti-code miners out there so they can be all by themselves. And then the code people would be like 3 hours to gank a ship. You can mine in peace all by yourself. So Eris is like 96. And we just discovered in October 2015, just last year, we discovered a new item. We don't give them names right away. We give them numbers and code numbers. And its number is V774104. And it's the farthest piece of light farthest rock we know in the solar system. And it's 103 AU. So we have star systems in Eve that are 130 AU. So to us, that's like, nah, that's not that far at all. So we can make that one. So this is what the Kuiper belt kind of looks like. The Oort cloud looks like. It's not a flat ring like the other asteroids belt. It's this giant cloud. And it's the home where all the comets and a lot of the icy balls, and this is what's left over from the formation of the solar system. So the nearest star to our solar system, you can do with a jump drive in a capital ship pretty easily. But if you were to take a freighter in Eve modern times, not in the ancient lore, but right now in Eve, it would take you 2 days and 16 hours. And so that would be kind of a neat modification, that if you want to get around a gate camp, you just fire up your drive on Monday and come back by Wednesday, and you'd be all done. So yeah, 268,000 AU. And I had to do the math on that because we don't do AU measurements to the stars. But that's about how far it would be. Oh, and there's other strange things out there in our solar system. I'm so happy. Trust me, as we get to near the end of this, I get more excited. So there's these Trojan asteroids around Jupiter. There's the Trojan Greek and I know what you're laughing at. I know. And this guy, Joseph Louis Lagrange, he came up with, he died in 1813, but before he died in 1772, he was working on the Newtonian problem of three-body mechanics in space. And he came up with these stable gravity areas. They're areas where you can come into space and you can actually park without too much help. It's kind of like a little valley of gravity, and so you can park right there. And so that's Jupiter down below, and you see two types of asteroids. There's the Hilda and the Trojans. The Hilda are the purple ones, and the Trojans are the green ones. So let's take a closer look at those. So Scott Manley, hey Scott, I told you I'd show this. Scott Manley, he's not just an Eve player, he also does Kerbal like crazy. And he's got this, right? He's got this huge Kerbal following out there, and he's also come up with some videos trying to educate people to that. So big shout out to Scott, I'm a big fan of his. And so I modified his graphic a little bit. But these are the Hilda asteroids, and they're in what's called a 3-2 resonance, which means as Jupiter goes one time or 2 times around the sun, these asteroids go 3 times, and they're into this pattern that goes there. And then these are the Trojans, which follow in front of and behind Jupiter, and with the main belt asteroids there. And so those are at the L4 and the L5. And yeah, that is a mining retriever. Oh my gosh, this one. Woo-hoo. So we just discovered this in 2010. Earth has an L4 asteroid. We have one, where Jupiter has many. We have our own little Trojan. And it takes a couple hundred years to travel the L4. The L4 is actually a longer region in there. So it goes halfway around the sun, and then we start catching back. So it's in orbit. So it's kind of hard to see. I'd have to use hand puppets to show how it kind of works. But yeah, it goes around, and we catch up to it, and it runs away from us, and then we catch up to it again, and then it runs away from us. So, hello, TK7. Yeah. So that was done for JPL by Paul Weiger, so thank you guys. And then there's this guy. This one we just discovered in 2016. And again, doesn't have a name, we call it HO3, but it's the best example of a quasi-satellite. So it's not really a moon, but it does play this leapfrog game with Earth, that it's kind of in the same type of orbit. It goes forward, it passes Earth, and then under a little bit of influence of Earth, then we overtake it because it's in the outer, and then it gets Earth influence again, and then we pass it, and then it passes us. And so it causes this whole quasi-satellite. And the thing is about it, this is new. It only happened within the last 100 years. And we expect this will last for several centuries to come. So it's about 40 to 100 meters in diameter. It never comes closer than 14 million kilometers to Earth. So we got kind of a second quasi-moon. Is that new? Op success. Okay, and so now you can tell I'm getting even more excited. Okay, there are more worlds to explore. And of these worlds, there are moons, there are comets, and what's really awesome, in my lifetime, we never left the planet. In my lifetime, the first human was launched into space, and then we launched space probes into space. So we didn't know any of this stuff. So in my lifetime, we started seeing the moons, and the moons were just shocking because we thought maybe they were just like Mercury or the moon. But no, we actually found one moon that has an atmosphere. So one of these moons is not like the others, and it's Titan. That's around Saturn. So, I missed it, what? Let's see, Aura, are you there? Aura, warp us to Saturn, please. All right. Okay, Aura, warp us to Saturn.
Warp drive active.
Ooh, here we go. All right, we're on our way to Saturn. Oh, wait, that's not Saturn. Guard, I'm never letting you my computer again before a presentation. All right, here's Saturn. And this is amazing. We're going into Titan. And it's not just the atmosphere, there's more. But wait, there's more.
There is only one moon in the whole solar system with an atmosphere. Titan, largest moon of Saturn. Shrouded in thick haze, until recently, the surface of this mysterious world remained a mystery.
Yes, indeed. So this is the visual view of Saturn. Not much to see there, but we have instruments on the spacecraft. So we have infrared and we have radar instruments. And lo and behold, when we peeked under the surface with these instruments, we found methane seas in lakes. Methane is natural gas, like ethane and propane and all those organic gases, same type of thing. And there's methane seas down there. But when you have methane on Earth, there's a lot of methane in the solar system. There's cows produce methane. But there's also naturally occurring methane that occurs in the solar system. And on Earth, that's kind of bad for us because it's a greenhouse gas. But there's people who are studying this right now, University of Alaska Fairbanks, and if you go back to school, it could be hazardous to your health.
Methane is formed in millions of lakes around the Arctic where permafrost is thawing. And each year, these lakes are emitting already tremendous amounts of methane. But when we look at how much carbon is in permafrost still frozen, and the potential for that permafrost to thaw in the future, we estimate that more than 10 times the amount of methane that's right now in the atmosphere will come out of these lakes.
I want to go light a lake on fire. So, but wait. You said lakes and seas? Yeah, Yeah, there's lakes and seas. So we launched 2 spacecraft, one from NASA, and then on piggyback was a module from ESA, the European Space Agency, and it was called the Huygens probe. And the European Space Agency, London and all the Europeans, they've gone together and they've done a lot of the study on the surface. So in their words, we're going to hear a little bit more about the liquid methane.
The liquid here, obviously, is water, but on Titan it's far too cold for water. It's 180 degrees below zero.
Celsius.
The kind of liquid that we think is present on Titan is a mixture of methane and ethane.
The Huygens probe actually showed us that there was indication of liquid methane on Titan's surface. We saw it through evaporation, we saw it through the channels and probably the dry lake. But since then, we've got real evidence that there's liquid methane on Titan's surface. And that came from the mother spacecraft, from Cassini orbiter, who took those beautiful images in the North Pole of Titan showing the extended lakes that are there, and also that these lakes are filled with real liquid.
We know that the lakes exist both at the North Pole of Titan and at the South Pole of Titan, and in Titan's current season, the aerial distribution is much greater in the north than in the south.
On Earth we have the water vapor cycle that brings us the clouds, the rain and so on. On Titan the same thing we have, but with methane.
It actually rains.
The current thinking is that you get these very high energy rainfall events similar to monsoons on the Earth, which produce flash flooding and deposit very large amounts of material, both fine-grained and coarser material, in a very short period of time, and then the area dries up.
This is an actual picture from the Huygens probe, and the rocks that are there are actually most likely water ice, but it's so cold, 180 degrees Celsius, minus Celsius, there, that that water ice is as hard as a rock. So it's pretty hard. But if you were there and looking at it with your own eyes, because it's under that cloud, that haze, it would be very, very dark. And not only that, you're standing very far from the sun, because if you're standing at your porch, your back porch, under the porch light, you would be pretty bright. But if you were standing way at the backyard, that porch light doesn't light up you and everything else. And that's how it would be on Titan. So I need to calm down a little bit, and I just want to give you a little bit, a moment of zen while I have some water and I calm down. That actually goes for about 10 minutes, but I'll spare you. And that's what it's like right now, at this very moment. That's happening. It blows me away when I think about that. So here I am cutting waves on. So this is something else that we observed at Saturn, and this might get a few giggles, but it's called the Great White Spot. So.
My name is Bridget Hessman, and I'm a planetary scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, and I study storms on Saturn. A great white spot is a massive storm system that erupts on Saturn about once every Saturn year. The great white spot that erupted in December 2010 first presented itself as this fluffy white storm cloud that popped up in the northern hemisphere. The storm, when it erupted, sent large waves up into the stratosphere, and we saw effects like an increased amount of ethylene, something we never expected to see. In the coming days, the winds on Saturn sheared the storm in both directions, and it wrapped all the way across the planet. If you were to scale that to a storm system here on the Earth, what you would have is a storm system that covers all of North America but wraps around the entire planet.
That's a big storm. That's pretty cool. So now the most biggest surprise at all is the amount.
Drive active.
Well, thanks, Ara. So we're going to Jupiter now. So at Jupiter, if you notice the numbers, we're going to focus on Europa, which is Moon 2, but you see the 6. So in Eve, we number the moons from the planet in sequential order away from the planet. But on Earth, we didn't know there were 4 more moons. So we do keep track of the order that they are, but we give them the official name in the order that they were discovered. So I want to take you on a journey to Moon 2, because this is amazing. At Europa, if there was any chance of life right now, it could well be here.
Europa is the most likely place to find life in our solar system today, because we think there's a liquid water ocean beneath its surface. Now we know that on Earth, everywhere that there's water, we find life. So could Europa have the ingredients to support life?
We might be actually looking at a body that is presently alive, presently active, and presently undergoing its geology. There is too much evidence right now lying around on the surface, the red stuff, that suggests that something's going on there. Is that an environment that is habitable for any sort of life form? By golly, we really have got to go back and figure that out.
Alien ocean! Woo! Yeah, it's happening. It's there also now. So if you were to take all the water on the Earth and put it in a ball in space, it wouldn't stay there long because it would sublimate. But it's really not that much water. Matter of fact, the Earth is actually smoother than a pool cue ball. If you were to take Mount Everest at the highest and the Marianas Trench at the lowest, you got to consider that Everest is 5 miles high, and this is like almost 7,917 miles across. Do the math. That's like within hundredths of a percentage. It's really, really thin. It's not that much when you really stop and think about it. But if you look at Europa, it has more water than all of Earth. Amazing. So there is this ocean that is out there, and if there's an ocean, there could well be life. And there's a whole new field that you can do called astrobiology.
So what if I told you that there is an ocean out there beyond Earth? An ocean in our solar system that has been in existence for billions of years. It's an ocean that is perhaps 10 times as deep as Earth's ocean. It's an ocean that is global and may contain 2 to 3 times the volume of all the liquid water on Earth. It's an ocean that exists beneath the icy shell of Jupiter's moon, Europa.
So we are planning a Europa mission to try to learn more about that ocean, and we hope to launch it. So who's ready to go whaling? Let's go find. I mean, seriously, what could go wrong? That could be bad. So unfortunately, I'm running really short, and I can't tell you about all the neat things about the sun, so we'll have to skip that. But there is part of the sun that the sun has this huge influence. And this is Zeta Ophiuchus, and you can see the shock wave of the sun traveling through a nebula. Now, the funny thing about Eve and nebulas, if you're in a nebula, you actually don't know you're in a nebula, because it's like looking at smog. When you're in smog, you don't know you're in smog until you see it in a distance. And that's the same thing true with nebulas. So we could be in a nebula. We wouldn't even know. But in our lifetime, just recently, the Voyager 1 and 2 spacecraft penetrated the outer Helios pause for just a minute, and they were in interstellar space. That just happened, and then the sun puffed out again, and the heliopause swallowed it back up. But they're still heading out there, and they're moving at about 3.6 AU a year. So this is the solar system, and there's so much new information that you can go out on the internet. But, Carl Sagan turned around and looked back at Earth in 1990, and I met him at JPL during about 1988, and I ran into, I'm not going to take the time. I got to spend about 90 minutes talking to him there, and then he told me that they were going to take this picture. And this picture is about 20-some images, and we got 6 of the 8 planets, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Venus, Earth, Jupiter, Mercury and Mars were too deep into the sun, so we couldn't see them. But in one of the camera sun rays was Earth, right there in the middle. And it was called the pale blue dot. And Carl Sagan just stared at that picture over and over again. And then he gave a talk, and then he put it in an audiobook. So this, you just got to think about everything that pale blue dot is and how significant that is.
From this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest. But for us, it's different. Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on the mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
It underscores our ability to be kind to each other. That was Carl Sagan speaking, so I hereby appoint him to sainthood in my church. Saint Einstein and Cardinal deGrasse Tyson and Bishop Nye too. So I get asked this all the time, Mr. White, why don't they teach this in schools? And you know, look at it. Ships 200 years ago and planes 100 years ago. And look at ships now and planes now, remote drones and so forth. We've been to the moon, but now look at a classroom from 200 or 100 years ago to now. Not much has changed. But teachers can only teach what they know. They're people too. But they need to learn more about this and keep up. And so NASA is not the Department of Education, but we're doing as much as we can to get out there. If you are a teacher or you know a teacher, simply go out there to Google and type NASA teacher resources, and there is so much that you can learn yourself and for your students to go out there. There's also these other websites that I encourage you to visit, including the Eyes on the Solar System, which is a live feed from JPL. You can see what we're up to at any given time. And there's free education out there too. Open University, the video that you saw earlier was from Open University. And that's in London, and you can get free education online that they just give it away. You can also get it from my employer, Caltech. George Davosky and Mike Brown. Mike Brown is the guy that discovered all the minor planets that are out there. But one warning, these are Caltech level classes, and so it's not an entry level class. You have to have a lot of math at that level, so you may want to try some of the other. But the resources are out there. All you have to do is find it. So there's a lot of credits. I wanted to throw these up to a lot of people that are out there. Just search for anything by Carl Sagan. I implore you. He makes me cry every time. There's so much that's just out there, and so I just want to say thank you.